Hi guys, so I hope this video finds you well. I decided to make this video because I had some requests from family members for me to make like face masks for my mom or whoever might want to use them, just as a precaution. Now, you know, you can read about this. The one I chose is the one that JoAnn's is putting on their site. I guess, I don't know if they're giving out free kits or something, but I'm not encouraging people to go to the store or things like that. So what I want to do is show you how to use the pattern at home with the things that you already have. If you're even slightly interested in crafts or sewing, you might have a sewing machine. The sewing machine I'm going to use is a very old one from IKEA. It's not even the best sewing machine that I have. I have a Futura Quintet that's a very high-end model, and I'm like, you know what? No, I want it to be accessible, okay? So I was even thinking about using the little Singer one that I had bought at Walmart, but I thought, well, okay, let's not make it too difficult. So you can definitely get that sewing for you. What I like about this pattern is that you do not need elastic. So a lot of times we buy fabric because we think it's pretty, or, you know, we might already have it just laying around. I have tons of fabric, so I do have some elastic, and but I figured not everybody does. So this is gonna be a very super basic face mask that you can make. The ones that JoAnn's asking you to make that are like this are, you know, to send them in, and they will get them out to some medical professionals, and they'll do what they need to do with them to make it work, right? So this is not even close to, you know, a professional mask, obviously, but it's just the design, and it's better than nothing is what a lot of people are pretty much coming down to. So again, you use this as you see fit. And I'll have a link to the JoAnn's page about them because they have a lot of information there, a lot of questions and answers, frequently asked questions, stuff like that. So the instructions are very easy. I do have a lot of quilting materials. I can cut this up in 2 seconds with a nice rotary cutter and all that, and you know, ruler. But I figure a lot of people don't have that at home. So my goal is to make this as easy and user-friendly as possible, something that you can just kind of whip up, right? So it might not be as square as, or nice and straight as I would normally do it, but I'm going to be using basic things that you might have around your house. So I did print out the pattern. It comes from Froedtert and Medical College of Wisconsin. Really clear instructions if you know about sewing. Some things are still a little bit kind of, okay, I don't quite understand what they're saying here. But as far as the pattern itself, it is a very good pattern, I think, because it, you know, sews in all the ends and everything as you're working it. So it's not like super difficult. So I really appreciate that they really thought about it, how to make it super easy, right? So it does say to use 100% cotton, something nice and thick that supposedly once you layer up the 2 layers, you can't see through. So like poplin, shirting, sateen. They say, you know, fossil saucer fabric is your high thread count sheets. So cut up your Egyptian cotton sheets, no, I'm just kidding, and pillowcases, right? So things like that. And then, you know, you can, says, wonder if your fabric will work. Simple way to check is fold it in 2 layers. You shouldn't be able to see through the fabric, but you should still be able to breathe if you hold it over your mouth. Now, it says the fabric should be washed and dried, okay? And dried on hot in order to pre-shrink them. As you can see, I have this little basket sitting in front of me. Obviously, these are not washed, but this is for tutorial, not so much that do this, okay? So go ahead and wash your fabrics like they say. Another thing is you might have some of these things laying around, like these are fat quarters. One of the pieces of fabric has to be 40 inches long, which is kind of long. I mean, that's over a yard. I know with these fat quarters, they're only 18 by 21. You might have scraps of fabric. You might have maybe, I don't know what you have laying around. So I'm gonna have to double one of these up for the straps, the long straps that go around your face. So so that'll be another little piece of information that might help. Okay, so these, I know this quilting fabric, it's okay, it's 100% cotton, it's not super thick, I know that. But I'm still gonna just grab like maybe this one, I don't know. Sure. And so again, these are fat quarters. So I'm just gonna take one of those. Again, it is 100% cotton. It might not be the thickest fabric in the world, so I probably would triple it up. But again, you use these at your, what you think is good. I do have just a ruler just to help me kind of measure some of these things out. But again, if I had my quilting ruler, I would just cut up really nice and easy. I do have some other things you might need. You're going to need pins. Obviously, you're going to need a sewing machine. You can do this by hand. It's just going to take you a little while longer. You have to have a really nice stitch for that, too, if you want it to be nice and sturdy. And definitely those, I think, would be for personal use, not so much to send them out, because who knows if it's going to come apart or something like that. So this little thing has, like, you know, has a pencil. You can always just use a marker if you need something like a dressmaker chalk. You know, threads. We need pins, though, so that's kind of why I pulled this out. And I don't even see my pins in here right now, so I might have to go downstairs. I'm like, oh yeah, let me grab this because it has pins. no pins for now. I don't need them quite yet, so that's okay. But you definitely need pins. So it says you need 2 pieces of 100% cotton, 7 by 9 inches. So normally how I would do my stuff is I would have this ironed, of course, but we're just getting right to it. And you measure it. I have this measuring guide here. If you don't have that, just completely measure it out. And I'm trying to make things easy. So like, you want 2 pieces of fabric that are 7 by 9. This happens to be 9 already because it's 18 inches wide, so I don't have to cut the 9, but I do have to cut 7 across, right? So let me just kind of even this out. Again, you would just measure it with your ruler. I can see with this extra grid that 7 is right here. And again, just measure it with your ruler. I'm going to mark it. You can mark it with a Sharpie. It doesn't matter. Whatever marker you have, a crayon, white crayon, because basically that's going to get covered up anyway, because once after we cut it, you're going to be sewing all over this thing. So I am not cutting the 9 because we have to layer it up anyway. So this is perfect. I'm not going to cut the 9 length. I'm just doing the 7 width here. Okay. And then we have, and I'll probably take a moment to iron this just so it looks nicer for you guys. So I'll do that in just a moment. We also need pieces that are 1.5 by 6. You need 2 pieces that are 1.5 by 6. So what I'm going to do is cut this at 1.5 width, and then I'll cut the 6 inches. So 1.5, we're just going to measure 1.5, 1.5 inches. And I'm just going to mark that. Oopsie, so 1.5. by 6. So I know that this is 9 wide here, but we're gonna have to cut this anyway. So I'm just gonna go ahead and measure 6 inches and 6 inches. So that's 6 inches right there. I'm just gonna put a mark. This part you can have a little bit of extra when you do the thing, so that part doesn't really matter. Then I'm just gonna lay this one over this guy. However you like to measure your 6 inches there. Okay, and then we need another piece that is 1.5 by 40. So it was easy for me. Remember, this is what, 21 inches long but 18 inches wide. So we have the 18 inches wide here. It's folded over. That's kind of why I'm able to cut the 2 pieces at once. So we could have cut it at the lengthwise, but then I would have had to do something different with the face mask part of it. So I'd rather just stick together a few of these strips. So what I'm going to do is just cut 1.5 inch strips, just like you saw me doing. I'll measure 1.5, and I'll be right back. I don't think we need to bore each other with that, but here, 1.5, 1.5. I'm going to mark it, and I'm going to cut a few strips that are 1.5 inches wide. Okay, I'm just finishing up these pieces here. So what I did was I went ahead and cut, again, this is a fat quarter, so it's only 18 inches by 21 inches. So on the 18 inch side, we have a 9 inch strip here, that's 1.5. We need 2 strips that are 1.5 by 40. Now, if you have just a regular yard of fabric or whatever, usually those are like 36 inches long or 42 inches long. It depends on the fabric you get. But if it's a yard long, if you cut a yard, that's only 36 inches. So you might have to do some of this splicing anyway. So I have 2 pieces here that are 18 inches. By the time we sew them, maybe with like a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch allowance, right, we want to sew these, you're going to lose a little bit. But from that first strip, you guys remember we needed pieces that are 1.5 by 6 inches. I still have a 6 inch piece here. So that's a little extra 6 inch piece I'm also going to add there. So that's going to be more than 40 inches, which is great. You can have extra. You just don't want to be shorter than that in case someone can't tie it right around their head. So I'm going to use that. And then again, I have 2 more strips here that we cut earlier. So again, 2 18-inch pieces, plus I'll add another 6-inch piece like we did with the other one. So I have another piece cut here. So just do your math. I mean, it depends on your fabric, this part, but I did want to give you that tip in case you don't have fabric that's long enough, right? That you can still piece pieces together to make your straps. Of course, it'd be nicer if it was one piece. Just it works up faster, but you know, it's not always perfect, right? So there we go. So we have our pieces cut. So the next thing we're going to do is So let me bring over my sewing machine and we'll get to it. Okay, so I hope you guys can see what's going on. Hopefully you have your bobbin loaded. This has pink thread in there. It's not my favorite, obviously it doesn't match here, but I'm gonna leave it at that because this is a very old machine and it has like one of those old school bobbins and I don't want to mess with it. I do have some white thread up on top. It's really hard for me to get the camera to show you pretty much everything, but you see the little white thread up here. I'm literally in my room. I just opened up the windows, which I never open, and I set up a little makeshift table and I'm sitting at a weird chair. So just so I can get some time to do this for you guys. So let's go ahead and get to the face mask part. So your 7 and 9 by 9 inch pieces, you're supposed to have 2 of them. And remember, I did not cut the one edge because mine was doubled over already and that just worked out. So that edge is already pretty much stuck together, but we're gonna go ahead and sew this. So they want you to stick it together, wrong sides facing, which means the sides that are not the pretty sides should be facing each other, okay? And you're gonna stitch it up at a 1/4 inch seam, right? And normally on most machines, from where your needle is, if it's in the middle, right? Because I know some machines you can move it to the left or right. If yours right down the middle, the edge of your presser foot should be a 1/4 inch. So that's the guide. It's an easy guide to use. So all we're gonna do is go around the whole thing a 1/4 inch. And this, I was gonna say, this guy might be loud and it might not even want to sew. There we go. I had this out, and that means it wants to wind the bobbin. I tell you, this machine's old. I don't know. I haven't used it in a long time. So normally I would be at an actual table. This thing is moving, so it looks kind of funny, but here we go. Once I get kind of to the corner, I kind of start doing by hand or at least eyeballing. I'm bringing it forward because when you pick this up, your presser foot, and you go to turn it, you might have more than a 1/4 inch off the side. But I can see that it's still okay because one of the fabrics is a little bit longer than the other. So I'm going to leave that right there and go up the other side. I'm sorry that this is the oldest machine in the history of the world. Actually, it's not. And I even have, oh gosh, what's it called? Antique singers, which are really fun. See, that wasn't quite where I want it, so I'm going to keep going. Just because this machine's old school, I'm just doing it by hand and eyeballing. So that's a good 1/4 right there. Not quite. Hope you guys see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get it right at the edge, so when I turn it, we only have a 1/4 left. Just so on the edge of. There we go. That's much better. Again, we're going to sew up all 4 edges. So here we go. I'll come back when I'm at the end of this. Okay, and just my last pivot. So this is basically the mask part. We are going to make pleats on it. So we'll do that in the next part here and just sew that last edge. Okay. So, and normally I like to sew forward and back when I start something, but we're going to sew around this edge again and again when we add the straps and we add the sides. So it's not that important, but so I'm just going to let this open this up. And this machine's fancy because it has a thread cutter on the side. All right, that's fancy. Okay, so let me move this over. So what we need to do now is, let me readjust this, is the part that I think sounds or seems a little bit tricky that you might get caught up in. So it says to create the pleats, you need to put pins, and this is just for you to know. You don't have to put pins, but it makes it easier. So it says place pins along 7-inch edges as illustrated. So 1.5 inches down, you're gonna place 1 pin. And then 1 inch from there, you're gonna place another pin. 1/2 inch from there, another pin. 1 inch from that one, another pin. 1/2 inch down from that one, another pin. 1 inch down from that one, another pin. So let's do one side together. And I have my little pins finally. What I was also thinking is, instead of pinning all this stuff, if you really want to, you can just put marks because you're gonna have to move these pins out of the way anyway. So just, you can mark it. Let's bring our ruler back. And already this isn't that bad, guys. So we're measuring from the top, not from our seams or where we sewed. So let me turn this. Oh, this is such a bummer because you know what? Oh, I guess I'll do it this way. So I had to start at 12 inches, which is not ideal because I have to count backwards. I want that to be close to where I'm looking at. So an inch and a half. Okay, guys, sorry about that. I just realized I sewed together my little extra piece that was left over for after cutting. That's why this is a little bit smaller than what it should be. So, okay, so let's do this again. Good thing I noticed kind of quickly. I was like, this doesn't seem right. So this is the part of the pattern that seems a little bit confusing, right? So it might be, but basically, like I mentioned, we're gonna do, you know, the pins, right? So let's go ahead and start. So I'm gonna use my ruler here, and I'm facing it wrong with the 12 inches facing this way, because if I do it this way, I have to be way out here with the 1 and 2. So I'm just going to turn it around. But basically, you're going to measure from the top of your fabric. So this is the 7-inch side, 9 inches long, right? So from the 7-inch side, you're going to take your pins, and let's start. So at 1.5 inches down, and I'm just kind of not eyeballing it. Obviously, I'm using my ruler here, but 1.5 inches. And then from there, 1 inch down, you're going to put another pin. So that's at 10.5, or not 10.5, sorry, at 9.5, the way I'm looking at it. So I'm not going to give those numbers because that might be confusing. 1/2 inch down from that one, you're going to put another pin. So 1.5, 1 inch, 1/2 inch, we're going to put a pin. Oopsie. And then we're going to go from there 1 inch down. So 1 inch from that one. We're going to put in another pin. And this ruler comes from the Dollar Tree, just so you guys know. I got it, well, a long time ago, and it's very handy. So 1/2 inch from this one, as you can see the little metal, like, it works really well. And then 1 inch down from that one, we're going to put another pin. Yeah, I started pinning that last one, and I'm like, this cannot be right. So it was not right, because I used a leftover piece instead of the right piece that I was supposed to be using here. Okay, so we're going to pin the same things on the other side also. So I'm going to be back, but basically on this other side, you're going to do the same pins. Okay, so I put the pleats all along here. Well, not the pleats, but the pins. So now what we're going to do, and this is the thing, it tells you there, and it's very clear written, but, you know, bring the first needle to the second to create a pleat, and repeat with the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th. So the first pin up here, we're going to match it up with the 2nd pin, right? So the 1st and the 2nd one are kind of together. And basically that's why you put the pins, just for this. And again, you can just mark it with a crayon, with your dressmaker, whatever. I'm going to take these out, and I'm going to keep one of them, and I'm going to pin that pleat down. Okay, so in the back, the pleat's there. So hopefully you can see this with the 2nd, bring it down to the 3rd one. So the 2nd one is going to meet up with the 3rd pin, see? And hopefully you can see the pleat behind. It's just tucked back there. I'm just going to tuck it up, but you can tuck it however you like. Let me see something. Yeah, it should be, actually I wouldn't say I would tuck it however you like, because if you're going to wear this, you want the pleats to be facing down. You don't want them facing up at you. And I guess you can just turn it around, really, the mask, right? So, do whatever you like. But I'm going to take those pins out. I'm going to keep one of them to pin that pleat in place. And now the 5th to the 6th. So the 5th and the 6th one, going to match up, take out those pins, pop one in place. This is very easy, you guys. I'm not gonna, like, this is easy. They did great instructions. I really like this very smart pattern. So on this time, I'm gonna do the same thing again, and I'll just do it off camera because it's the same thing. Bring the 1st to the 2nd one, pin it in place so that you don't mess up your pleat that you just made. And I'll do the rest on this side. Okay, now we're cooking. So if you want to, you know, obviously you can fix your little pleats. You can iron them later. It doesn't matter. Once you start washing these things and stuff, that's just not even going to matter, right? But here we go. And now they want you just to sew that again. Sew over your pleats. To make this easy, I'm going to make it so I have to sew down over the same areas you already sewed, right? Right on that same 1/4 inch line. Let's see, I lost my thread. I was out of frame anyway. So let me put these pins over here. Hopefully I don't drop them. Let's bring this bad boy back. And yeah, we're just going to sew right up that the same line that you had sewn on, right? Your 1/4 inch line. Now, some people swear you can sew right over your pins. If you're afraid to do that, don't do it. But in the past, I've always just sewn right over them, and it's been fine. But what I would do is once I get close, is pull that out, right? Pull that pin out. Oh, put it in my mouth, that's why. And keep going. And this one's a little bit further back than I would like. There we go. And we just did our pleats, guys. That's the hardest part of this thing. Okay. And again, we're going to sew over all these things, so I don't need to go in reverse and back and front, but you can do that if you like to secure your stitches. That's your kind of thing. Go for it. And I'm just going to do the same thing on this other side. I'm just going to turn it over so that I'm always just sewing the pleats in the direction that I want them. Sometimes if you go backwards, like see how the pleats are facing up, you might push it over. So you either need to be very careful as you do that, or I just would sew on this other side and sew it up 1/4 inch using this side as my guide. Okay, I'm going to this to the side. So I'm going to trim off a little bit of this stuff. Where is my... Some of this fabric that's kind of coming apart here on the edges. Try to get it nice and straight because obviously you don't want it all wonky so you can sew. And all these little pieces of string on the side and even that edge piece that was kind of crooked. I'm going to take it off just to get it out of my way more than anything. So now we're going to do these side pieces here just to make this nicer. So all we're going to do is take those small pieces that we had, and let me make sure I'm using the right ones. I guess they're all the same size. They're 1.5 by 6. Let me just make sure, since I sewed up that extra piece over there that I did not want. Okay, 6 by 1.5. Yep. So what we're supposed to do here with one of these guys is turn it over so that the the bad or the ugly side's facing you, and you're just going to kind of finger press this 1/4 inch up. Now you can use turn on your iron and get that going, but for now I'm just going to press it down, and I'm eyeballing it because I'm a pretty good judge of 1/4 inch now, since when you start sewing you kind of have a pretty good idea. And to be honest, if it's not correct, it's not the biggest deal because you have plenty of fabric. They made this almost like, well, foolproof really. So I made that little finger press. All right, nice and crisp. What we're going to do is bring over our mask, place this over one. See, I mean, they even made it so big that you can't mess this up, guys. I'm telling you. So we're going to put the edge that we did not press right on the edge of our mask here. And I would go ahead and pin it down. And normally I don't pin things. You can ask my sister whenever we do quilting. She's very exact, and I'm like, yeah, that's good enough. And then, her quilts always come out real nice. This is back in the day when we used to have time for quilting. We would make like those knot ones where you quilt, and then at the end you just tie them with a knot instead of having to actually hand quilt the thing. But she was always like, no. She had to have that 1/4 inch, and I'm like, it's okay. It'll be fine. It'll still be warm. Okay. Now, I'm not going to trim these pieces off, but if it makes it easier for you to see what you're doing, I would trim them off. But for now, we're going to do that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, but for this, just to show you this one right quick, we're just going to go up, again, 1/4 inch. And kind of you can feel where your mask is, so that obviously you want to catch the whole thing. Get that presser foot down, get that in there. And I'm trying to hold my pleats nicely. Take the pin out. So hopefully this gives you an idea about how long it takes to make one, because other than talking about it, obviously that adds time, but it's not too long. Okay, and again, I'm still not securing my ends because we're still going to sew over this even a few times. So now we have this end. And when you open it up, look how nice. Hopefully you can see that. That is really nice. Okay, and let me see what it says at the end of that. Lay unfolded side, whatever, stitch at 1/4 inch. Fold binding around, seam allowance, and pin on opposite side, encasing raw edge, top stitch in place. Okay, so that's what I thought. So let's finish up this one side so you can see. So now that we have that nicely, we're gonna come over here, bring it around, and get this placed down on here. Okay, and let's go ahead and pin it. This is really easy, guys. I can't say that enough. I'm telling you, I love a good pattern. They did a great pattern here. And then they want you to top stitch it. So as far as top stitching, I guess that depends on how you like to do it. Like, do you want it to be at the very edge right here, which is normally what I would do. So I'm going to top stitch it real close to the very edge, and hopefully, I'm sorry the lighting has changed, but hopefully you can still see what's going on. Maybe I'll get another light out. Let me get this thread so it doesn't take off on me again like it did earlier. Okay, so this time you are going to pick which side you like, I guess. I don't know if it really matters. So this is going to be my top side. So I'm going to put this on here. And I'm going to try to stitch as close to this edge as I can. This edge here, not the outer edge. So again, old school. I'm going to put that down. And try to make it nice and straight. Move your pin. I don't know if anybody's going to look at it and say, hey, that top stitch is not straight. But I think we'll be fine. I think you'll be fine. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. See, here comes the sun again. Okay, so again, you know, how's my top stitching? I don't know. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I just finished the other side, and then it says to go ahead and trim it up to match the edges, obviously, so we're going to take that off. And now again, keeping in mind what is your front and what is your back, so you want it to look nice, especially since you just did your top stitching, so now it's more important as far as what side is what. Where's my top stitching? I think that's it. Yeah, it's definitely on this side. So again, if you wanted to iron these little pleats just to make it look lovely, you can definitely do that, or just kind of do one of these little hand numbers here like I've been doing. So there we have our pleats. And so now, since we had to do a little bit of a hack job, right, to get the strings as long as we need them, I'm going to bring these over. And this is not something you have to do, obviously, if you have your 40-inch strips, don't worry about it. But since I do not have 40-inch strips, I'm going to sew these pieces together. So we need 2 of the longer pieces that are 18 inches each, right? 1.5 by 18 inches. And of course I'm going to put the pretty sides together, facing each other. And this is just going to be a quick little, hopefully a quick little thing here. And I'm going to show you an old quilting trick. So I just finished that one. I haven't taken it off. I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to bring the next set of strips. So this is another set that we need to put together. Again, just those 2 edges touching. I can see that I did not cut these the same. They're a little bit different. Without removing this one, and that way you're saving time, you're saving thread. You just let it go. Bring the next one in. Give it some space. And then go ahead and sew the next one. And now I'm going to remove that first one because I still need to add one more piece to that one, right? Because that's only maybe 35.5 inches long now that we've sewn that together. Sewn together. I'm going to take one more little 6-inch piece that we had cut earlier and put that again pretty sides facing. And I'm going to do that one. So let this go through and then give it some space and bring this guy in. So again, if you have your nice long strips, you don't have to worry about this. We are just working with what we have at home, which is what's going on these days, right? And the last strip I'm going to add to that first one we did, the second one we did there. Just finish it off. So they are at least 36 inches, 40 inches long, sorry. These are going to be longer than that by a few inches, but that's better than too little. Oopsie. I think I might have run out of bobbin thread. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so this part's a little bit, it's just tougher because we have a longer strip that we have to work with. But what we're going to do is take our mask and fold it in half. Basically, you want to find the center point. It says to mark it with a pin, so I'll just do that. But you can mark it, you know, however you like. Or just leave it folded, really. But let's just take this and mark it with a pin. Let's just say that's the center. And then we're going to take one of our strips and do the same thing. They want you to fold and press edges to center. So we're going to take one of our long strips here. I'm just gonna throw those things to the floor there and fold it in half, okay? Just so you kind of get a good, again, if you have your iron on, that'd be wonderful. Get your iron going. So I'm just gonna finger press this thing to the middle, and I don't wanna waste your time watching me do this, but we just turn it into the middle so it's just folded in half, right, along the whole length. Okay, so I had to do that because what we're gonna do is, so I already have the center kind of marked, right? Because we just went through the whole thing. And then when you get to these areas, if you are sewing yours together, just kind of open them out, because otherwise they'll be like this. Just open up your seams there. So what we're gonna do, and this is when I just like, is on these long strips, we mark the middle. Just, that was basically for my registration, but you're gonna fold these guys in. Okay, and you're gonna do the same thing for the other side, but that's not as important right now. So I'm just gonna mark this, again, kind of like we did with the other one. So I'm just kind of folding this, and to be honest, I'll probably end up just eyeballing this because when I get there, because I'm not that detail oriented, but I'm gonna go through this whole thing and just fold that in. So basically at the end, we're gonna have this strap folded in and then folded up, and so it makes a nice strap, okay? So for right now, I'm just folding that other half up to the center mark that we made. Okay, so after we've done that, what we're supposed to do is take this and fold it in half, the length of it, fold it in half, so that we know where the middle of this is too. And all you're gonna do, I'm just gonna mark it like this, is take the center of this guy and the center of this guy and put them together. So I'm gonna turn it over. So the side that we didn't fold, remember this is nicely folded, the side that we didn't fold is going to be up on here. So I'm just going to take out my pin. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't just, to be honest, the pinning thing is kind of like, okay, whatever. Because we can just mark it the way I did. So we're going to take that and find our center again. So center of this, we're going to put them together. And this way. And we are going to sew across this just like we did on the binding on the sides, okay? And I'm trying to remember, so if this is the top side that I like, I'm going to flip this around. That should be fine. Okay. So I'm going to pin these together because this might move and it's a little bit longer, so I am going to pin edge to edge. So hopefully you guys are following along. I hope that gave you a little tip as far as folding it in the center so you get a nice good center on that long strip, because that strip is very long. And that's probably the most tedious part of what we're doing here. Okay. And we're going to sew from here to here. Okay, so let's bring this guy over. This is where it starts getting tedious. But other than that, I mean, it worked out pretty quickly. If you were going to use elastic, you would have just sewn the elastic in before. So anyway, but I'm just going to put this down. Right down in there. And again, we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch. Again, same seam allowance. It's always a 1/4 inch. Right across. The bottom of our mask. I always put the pins in my mouth, which is probably not a good habit, but all right. And just step off there, okay. And then, so we're gonna do the same thing to the top as we do to the bottom. So I'm gonna show you this, and then I'll finish it up off camera because it's the same thing, top and bottom. Where are my scissors? Oh, I guess we don't need them because we have this fancy cutter here. Sorry about the lighting changing. I tell you, the kids are just kind of playing in the room over. I was like, we'll just get this done. Okay, so when you open this up, as you can see, obviously it doesn't look all that great, but what you're going to do is turn it again, just like we did with the other binding on the small sides, and roll it over to the back. And we already had that nice crease that we put in here, so it's ready to go. It looks nice and everything's put away. I do need my scissors to cut this off. Scissors, come on, there they are. They were underneath my instructions. So I hope you guys are doing well, and if you try this out, let me know, because it's very easy. Hopefully the tips and seeing it in action kind of reminds you, or like, oh, okay, I know what to do with this. Okay, so we're going to roll this over. And unfortunately, this is a side I had top stitched. But remember, I have a pink bobbin thread, so oh well, it's gonna it's gonna show through. But that's kind of why, if you have a different color bobbin thread that you don't want to show through, think about how you're pinning this and how you want it to actually do your top stitch. And let's bring this guy back. And it does say to pin in place, so let's go ahead and pin it so we can make it look a little bit nicer. And to be honest, I could probably sew on the other side and still catch this, but I want to make sure that I'm catching it, so I'm not gonna fret too much over that. So, you guys use that word often? Fret? So let's put this over. And what's kind of interesting is it does say to sew it, but at the same time, why would we sew it now? Let me think about this. Okay, I jumped ahead of myself. So we're not quite ready to sew. So we pin that in place. And what you're going to do is come to the end of your little garment here, your strip, and make sure this is all folded nicely. So this again needs to fold inwards, right? Because it's like we were supposed to do the whole thing folding in. And when you get to the end, what they're saying is to make it look nice, you want to also fold in 1/4 inch on the very, very end of your strap. Okay, so I'm just kind of hand ironing that. Let's put this over here. So at this very end, they say turn it in about 1/4 inch. And then do this, right? Put that back in, put that back in. And then fold it in half and pin it in place. So we're gonna fold that in half. I know that's very tedious. This is why this kind of thing is a little bit harder, but it's what we have at home. And I'm sure once you get one going, you get another one. If you have a bias maker or a bias tape maker, which I think I do have one actually from when I used to quilt back in the day, you can just run this through there and you'll have a nice strip. But hopefully you can see I joined the middles there. And so what we're gonna do is have to really be careful with this. I'm probably gonna do some more pinning because, you know, this is very, very tedious. So I'm going to get a pin that fell on the floor here. And pin that. So this one you really have to make sure that you're catching it or else it's going to come apart, right? So let me get a few more pins in along this row here and on the other side, right, and I'll be right back. So we're going to start this off by sewing at this very little edge here. Woo! So again, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, this time I am lining it up with the outside there. I'm going to remove my pin since I can't even see what's going on with it there. And press your foot down. I'm going to bring this down in here. Move over just a little bit. I can tell it needs to be over this way a little bit. Okay. So, that's our little end. There's not much to do there. And again, if you want to reverse, this would be the time to do it because this is going to be the one that holds everything together. So let's reverse it a little bit and then let's go forward a little bit. All right, that time I would, again, make sure you do your reversing because this is what's going to hold this whole strap together. And then let's turn it to the side. And I am going to eyeball this thing from my left side here. I almost feel like just one more stitch. Again, I'm going to try to catch this as well as I can, just eyeballing it, because to be honest, you're not going to have a 1/4 inch. If you're going to do a top stitch, it has to be real close to this little edge right here. This edge, not the end. So you kind of have to eyeball that one. So I'm going to work on this. And that's too thick to go past my machine. There we go. Ooh, that's not good. Now, if you have a better machine that can take more layers, that was, how many layers? Fold it over, I don't know, 4 or 5 layers? I don't know. My machine didn't want to take it in, but we can get it. And we got it, so now I can keep working. I went right over that pin again, and I always kind of adjust as I'm going along. And I am kind of pulling it this time from the back, not too much, but just to keep it taut. Alright guys, guys, we're almost there. Now, when I'm getting closer to this guy, I want this to look nice. So I'm gonna really hold it. Really pay attention, because this is obviously the part that's gonna be showing mostly, right in your face there. And I have one last one. And then I'm going to keep going to the end of this strip. So just keep working and I'll meet you when I get back at the very edge. Yes, I'm at the very end. So just, again, we do that. We need to pivot. Turn this guy to the side. And you can probably just, to be honest, you probably don't have to pivot it. You can just go off the edge because it's not going to undo from there, but however you want to do that. And then some reversing's. And that's it. All right. I say that's it. Like, oh, that was so easy, but it wasn't. And, you know, I got better as I went along. Like this corner, look how nice that corner is. Hope you can see that. And let's look at the first corner. Let's take a look at my handiwork over here. Ah, yes. Gorgeous. So anyway, okay, I'm gonna do the other strap exactly the same way we just did. You know, fold it in half, line it up, and get going, and we'll be done, and we'll check it out. Okay, guys, I just finished that second strap. This is coming off of here, and I'm happy to be done. Hopefully that helped you guys out. I mean, I learned something myself. And again, there should be a nice side and a wrong side, and I guess this is my nice side because this is where I did most of the top stitching. But it's kind of hard to tell, to be honest. You know, I don't know if you can see my top stitching there. I had to do a little better job of that and be a little more patient with it. But I think once you start making tons of these, you're going to be an old pro and it's going to be super easy. Again, if you have a bias maker, a bias seam maker, or bias tape maker, whatever they call it, it's like this weird little thing that curls up, and when you put your fabric through it, it kind of helps you join it in the center and all that. But that is it. So let's try it out, I guess, even though I'm not wearing any makeup and I've just been haggard sitting here at the house like everyone else. Let's try it out, okay? I'll be right back. Okay, guys, well, I'm here, and you just saw me touching my face. We're not supposed to touch our face. Oh my gosh. Anyway, again, you know, however you want your pleats to be up or down or whatever, but I would assume that they should go down like this. I don't know about up. I guess it doesn't matter, but let's try it out. So I'm going to be quiet for a second here. Oh, there goes some motorcyclists. I guess I'm not going to be too quiet. Wow. Now, I'm using strap to strap. I don't know if that's what they want you to do. Maybe you're supposed to tie them around here, but I doubt it. So, it covers a lot. Easy to breathe. Pretty good, guys. I think we did a great job. So, if this is something that you've been looking into, let me try to, well, see, that's, that is nice and tight. I could not even pull it down because, again, there's no elastic there, so that's good, I guess. And I just did a knot. I didn't do a tie here. Hold on. Let's get this going. I'm not sure if that's the top one or the bottom one. But I hope you guys, you know, took a little mystery out of making these things, got some helpful tips. That definitely works. And it's not super hard to breathe through, but it wasn't the easiest thing, which is interesting because this is, like I said, this is a quilter's cotton. So I can feel like a little moisture though in there, you know, as I'm breathing. So anyway, maybe it's something, like I say, better than nothing. Again, it's not medical grade, but a lot of hospitals are accepting these. So look into the JoAnn's program to see what you can do. Maybe call your local hospital. I don't know if you want to go down there right now. I would leave it to the people who can take it over there to do that part. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have any questions, please leave them there and I will try to answer them. But basically what you saw in the video is all I know, and it's easier to watch a video than to talk about what we need to do. And if you see anything fun in the background here, I'm sorry, I just popped into my room and came over here. I do have a snake plant sticking out over here. Anyway, be well, guys. I hope you're all staying safe, staying healthy, staying home, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye now.